Hello and welcome to an opinionated video. So Anoymous has come out and basically stated that Donald Trump is a total dictator. He's Hitler, he's everything, he's a racist, he's a bigot. The usual stuff, right? I'm not exactly for Donald Trump. I don't necessarily believe in everything he says. But what's the alternative? That's the problem that most true conservatives have, that hold true conservative ideals, not some Bible dummy that thinks Leviticus 2:18 or whatever the hell it is that says homosexuality is wrong is relevant. Regardless if it's immorally wrong, why should the government prosecute? That's what most intelligent right-wingers can agree on. And I really don't want to talk about the Bible right now, so let's get back to the whole Anoymous calling out Donald Trump as a racist bigot and every other name in the book. The problem is not Trump and how he says a lot of really flamboyant language serious candidate would never use. It relates to voters, and this is a key factor in why it has its popularity. But I want to talk about the other key factor and those who want to vote or at least consider him as a serious candidate, and that is a sacrifice of Western values in the name of tolerance. Yes, I just said something completely racist in the eyes of every hardcore leftist. But now I must explain my reasoning for such a statement. See, it's not uncommon in the mainstream for people to regard Islam as a religion of peace, and many chapters have the usual God is great and praise God, praise be to God and stuff like that. However, a lot of this morality comes into issue and conflict with Western values once we start comparing how family structures are supposed to be and makes up the basis of Sharia law. Essentially, women are just baby makers, and it's proven to be the truth because of the high birth rates in Muslim countries. The other major criticism of the Quran is its violence. Many phrases follow this pattern of death to the infidels, death to non-believers, death to the Jews, death to Christians. If you're not participating, Allah is watching. Like, this is literal. Basically, this is paraphrased, and it's directly in context. There's no real, oh, we went to war with King David at this time and it was justified for these reasons. That's what the Bible generally sees, whereas the Quran is just an open-ended message to say, kill everybody who isn't a Muslim. I mean, there's a few passages that do say, if a guy is wounded, well then just let him be, but there's a much greater cry for war. The problem being, though, in Western civilization is, whenever mentioning these valid criticisms, most people will just throw out the racist word. You're an Islamic phobic. You don't understand the Quran. What the hell does death to the infidels mean to you? Seriously. I don't know any other clearer message that, oh, well, that was in historic context. Well, that's simply one way of interpreting the Quran. And the proof is that many people interpreted the Quran as a very violent, open-ended message against anybody who is not Muslim. Ben Shapiro does an excellent analysis that I'll link down in the description of how many true radical Muslims there are and non-bystanders there are. Essentially, these bystanders are powerless to stop under the idea of Sharia law. And those who claim to have some extremist tendencies, whether it's simply believing that the Sharia law should be imposed everywhere across the world, or if it's just simply as everyone needs to fucking die that isn't Muslim, it's really proven to be a majority, at least above 60, if not 80%. And that's of all Muslims, of over 1 billion strong. So ask yourself, if over 500 million people think that the Western civilization should have laws that state some people should not receive education, should not be able to drive, should not have equal rights, should be arranged marriage at the age of 9, among other easily arguable, unmoral, and completely illiberal, not just ideas, but actual laws with penalties such as stonings as merely one of the methods of enforcing these laws. Again, how is all of this moderate Islam? At the very least, can we agree that these are bad ideas? That they don't just want in their country, but they want in your country. It's not enough to have it in their country. They must have it in your country for some reason. I don't understand that whatsoever. How can you defend Islam as a whole and claim only a small minority of Muslims are extremist when, of course, the majority approves of such laws in your country? If you do think this, you should probably revoke your liberal card. Either way, this was all fine and dandy 10 years ago when technically the only people they were hurting was their own women and their own children, their own selves, as far as I was concerned. But now we have this whole migrant crisis, and we see a really scary future that could be ahead for the West. I mean, when you're having 4 kids on average, even in the developed world, compared to the 1.7 or 1.6 that it is in most Western countries, it's silly to think that people with Western values aren't at risk for having people who share the same values as them becoming the minority. The arguments against this clear population boom in the Muslim world is because of the low birth and fertility rates in the Muslim world. People are more inclined to have more children in order to ensure their success. However, admittedly, they are slow to adapting when faced with better fidelity rates, and I'm going to blame this clearly on the ideas of Islam and Sharia law. This is the reason why they have shitty fidelity and birth rates in the first place. This is why Islam needs to be reformed in at least the opinion of a Westerner, because their ideas just hold no rationale. Either way, high birth rates alone are not going to result in trouble for the West. It's the straight up, unheard of, massive influx of migrant workers into the Western world that is really troubling. And it comes down to the amount that are coming in. The rates of influx are just enormous. And the Black Pigeon does a very good analysis of how white Western German male adults will eventually become the minority in a short 4 years. Of course, this trend can reverse, but even if we see simply stagnation, the data shows a clear projection. So what happens to Germany when we have a Muslim majority in 4 short years? Well, it's doubtful that those Muslim men will have rejected their Western conflicting morals that are found in Islam. And with this shift of values and voter majority, suddenly laws can drastically change as potentially pro-Sharia law candidates are voted in. Hell, the demographic change alone is enough for German-born citizens to be frustrated, increasing the likelihood of civil unrest and, dare I say it, potentially war. I try not to be a fearmonger, but when things are just that drastic that quickly, I'm really not sure what to think what could happen. So now let's move back to Donald Trump and how he's being taken seriously. With people looking over across the ocean at this migrant crisis, they're just scared for Syrian refugees in general, especially these regressive ideas upcropping in the liberal spaces and mainstream media that they're not interested in. And hell, when the governments just focus more so on pushing the narrative that they're good to refugees because that's apparently what resonates with liberal voters these days, conservatives get really worried. And a guy who seems to not give a two fucks about being PC and saying he's going to run for president apparently resonates with voters. I mean, you can't blame Trump for being a dick. It's working. And hell, who's to say that building a wall around the United States won't make America great again? I mean, very blatantly, it sounds really stupid, but denying fresh immigrants and focusing on the problems that are already at hand in the country is not a bad idea when you think about it. I mean, America has a quality of life problem with homelessness and shitty education, corporatism and gun violence and suicide rates, health issues, you name it. It continues on. And adding life is not the solution to fixing the quality of life problem. In fact, it's going to make it worse. It's like telling an alcoholic that how he's going to solve alcoholism is adding more alcohol into his home. It's bullshit. And that's why at least a temporary setback on immigration is not as evil as an idea as it sounds. If you ever played a Tropico game, you probably understand what I mean by making sure that you manage your immigration policy according to what you need. And if those needs are focusing on quality of life, then close the damn border, at least until you get a hold on these issues. In all honesty, I hope to fuck that Trump is doing this whole circus act just for votes. I mean, I don't think he's completely stupid. He has held his wealth and made it into something more, even if he's not a self-made millionaire. He isn't backed by PAC money, and some of his policies hold some real merit. Like financial education? How is that not a bad policy? This is a capitalist society. Nothing's handed to you for free, and you need to learn how to make money. Adding this to your mandatory education is really going to help equip you with the skills you need in this nation. Whereas learning arts and crafts and whole sections of study dedicated to equality rights is worthless. Of course, I can be wrong, and it's possible Trump is a dummy just like his other candidates, but like who else? Nobody else is showing any real popularity or promise, other than Hillary and Bernie. Cruz is backed by PAC money. Who do Americans vote? If one thing's certain, there's no clear answer to this election cycle this time around, and it's been one of the most crazy election cycles in recent memory. Hell, I don't remember an American election this crazy, and, well, I'm pretty young, but still. I mean, maybe the older folks thought Reagan was crazy, but was the Reagan campaigns this crazy? I mean, I don't think they were, but I wasn't alive at the time, so I can't really say too much, but this is insane. Let's face it, it's madness. So Anoymous really should back off, especially when they're posting personal information of a candidate. Hell, are they just scared of him? Are they scared that Donald Trump might go after Anoymous? Maybe. And of course it could be a moral standing, but the likelihood that this is going to achieve the effect that they're portraying is minimal at best. I'd argue this is going to do the reverse, just like what's happening in the media. Because he doesn't respond like a normal candidate, this only further legitimizes his campaign. If anything, I'm skeptical of Trump, but at the same time, what do we need? A wrecking ball? A corporate shill? Or a guy who legitimizes Black Lives Matter and the usual regressive bullcrap? Either way, I don't have a vote in this fight, so it's not for me to decide, but plenty of people do have to make this choice. But I think everyone agrees that the last thing they want is the gun owners of America to bring out the AR-15s if unalienable rights are ever under a threat. Because most people can agree unalienable rights is worth fighting for. Anyways, I just find this topic interesting, and so I hope you enjoyed me speculating quite a bit on it, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you, and until next time.